What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. Happy New Year. If you guys are new to this channel, we're a channel that does mental health through pop culture and introduces you to a few new hidden gems along the way. My name's Captain Nostalgia. I'm a writer, podcaster, and the director of our film festival, Horrific Hope. First film festival of its kind to be horror-centric and mental health focused. And if you are an aspiring filmmaker and have a short film, feature film, or screenplay, links to enter those are in the descriptions below, and they will be open until January 15th, and all of our lineup for this year will be announced on February 1st. And we also want to shout out to our sponsors for this year's film festival and Convicted Printing, Diabolical DVD, and Fierce Literature. If you would like to be a sponsor, links are going to be in the show notes below, along with links to all of our current sponsors, our links to our social media, podcasts, more movie reviews like this, and most importantly, our mental health resource library. We're kicking this year off with Candyland, which is the latest feature from John Swab. This movie tells the story of a excommunicated cult member who finds herself among a community of sex workers and attempts to basically befriend them and earn their trust, only to slowly kill them off for her own religious agenda. So let's talk about John Swab before we kind of jump into a little bit of this. This is a director that I'm not too familiar with. I've only ever seen one feature of his before, and that was the Shudder original movie, Let Me Make You a Martyr, with Marilyn Manson. And I gotta say, from tonally, the way that if you guys have seen Martyr, and this film kind of feels tonally a lot like Martyr. Makes a lot of those same creative decisions where it's kind of really artistic approach to somewhat brutal subject matter. And with that said, a lot of those same stylistic choices make their way into here. That makes this movie feel a lot longer than it actually is. This movie clocks in at literally 93 minutes, and that's including credits. But the first, I would probably say, hour of this movie just feels like it runs at a snail's pace. Now, ultimately, in the end, this movie ends up being a slasher, but it feels like a long, steep hike in order to even get there. Now, look, don't get me wrong, I feel like movies like Terrifier 2 and really any movie from the 80s have kind of spoiled us when it comes to slashers. But then every so often you get intelligent slashers that are very much presented in the light of a slasher, but are also a very fascinating and very well done character study. Look no further than the stylist for that. And this is a movie that has very minimal bloodshed, but does actually make the most of its gags when they are presented. But it has enough character development to really hook you as a viewer. And if you guys are interested, it's now streaming on Shudder and also on Arrow Video. But I feel like for a slasher, Swab definitely tries to focus and fixate on this community. This movie really does feel like a grittier version of Hustlers. You really do get to know these group of girls and gentlemen, and I think it works really well in that respect. And having this fish out of water aspect with the excommunicated cult member really does work in its favor from that perspective. I think what I'm trying to say is ultimately this movie feels like a drama until it doesn't feel like a drama, but the switch is so drastic that it plants a little subtle hint in the beginning of the second act and doesn't really do anything with that until the second act, the beginning of the third act. And then once it plants that third act, it all just goes into full horror mode. That's really something I really wish that Swab would have been able to do a little bit better as the writer of this movie, was to balance the drama elements with the horror elements and kind of plant those seeds a little bit more subtle that makes the big reveal of who the killer is that much more impactful. It really feels like he wanted to tell the tales of this community, and in retrospect he's but also wanted to do a horror movie at some point. And I think this movie would have worked a little bit better as an indie darling than it would have as a flat out horror movie. As a slasher movie, the gags of this, again, going back to stylistic choices, there is a lot of frustration that as a horror fan I have with this movie. If you guys have listened to our podcast, Abyss Gazing, any length of time, if you guys have heard me talk about any horror movie on this channel, you guys know that I love blood, I love gore, and I love to see the creativity that directors and filmmakers can really make with this genre. Because horror is really like Play-Doh, you can really make and mold anything out of it, and I feel like for this choice, a lot of the slasher elements choose to be more stylistic over actually embracing the genre. And what I mean by that is it doesn't there's really no creativity to the gags whatsoever, and when you do actually see the gags happen, instead of actually focusing on what's going on between the killer and the victim, you're focusing on things like the floor, feet, the ceiling, just kind of various other things, and it definitely feels like there is a lot more attempts to go over a style versus a substance. I really do have to address the fact that this is, and it does feel like an indie darling. The cinematography on this feels like other independent movies that I've seen over the years of being a cinephile and a film critic. Shout out to Will Stone in this, who is the film's cinematographer. I think he does a great job at really kind of capturing the grittiness of this scene and this community, but it also feels very homely and welcoming at the same time, and it makes the colors of the gags, when you actually get to them, pop a little bit brighter, and the emotions to be a little bit heavier as well. But I talked about the fact that this movie has that indie darling feel to it, and I think it's propelled even more because of its performances. Olivia Luccardi in this is an absolute breakout. So she plays the character of Remy, who is the excommunicated cult member who basically befriends this group of sex workers. She's the character that feels the most developed in the course of this and has the most range of emotion. And I really really gravitated to her character. I thought that she does a tremendous job, and again, this movie just lives and breathes with her performance. And that's not to say that there aren't other performances, but no other actress or actor in this movie breaks out quite the way that Luccardi does. So you guys can catch Candyland streaming VOD and in limited release beginning this Friday, January 6th. Let's run this through our Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 3 out of 5. I think this is a strong start to the year. If this is what horror looks like, I feel like it can only go up from here. I think this movie really works as a drama, but not so much as a horror film. It feels like it has some inconsistencies with its tone, but it has really solid performances, and the gags are pretty cool in the third act, so I will give it that. I just wish this movie would have built up its horror elements a little bit more before jumping right into them in the third act. And let's talk about mental health. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health from the film of which we're reviewing, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. Now, the Remy character is a fascinating character, and I don't really want to spoil any more than I possibly already have by giving my synopsis at the beginning of this video, but her story and kind of the transition that she has from early on in the film really is fascinating. I think sometimes we have this tendency to be quick to judge people and not really understand the context of why they work where they work, why they believe what they believe, why they listen to the music they listen to, the movies they have, why they have tattoos, or just anything that brings judgment from one person to another. When we first meet Remy in this movie, she's very much on the judgmental side, but kind of getting to see the transition, really the friendships that blossom between these relationships, really proves that sometimes when it comes to your mental health, hope comes in the places that you least expect it. Community can come from places that you least expect it. And it goes to prove that just because one community doesn't necessarily work for you, or might be toxic for you, or might not really accept you for who you are, doesn't mean that another group can be embracing and will accept you for who you are in spite of all of your failures and shortcomings. I hope this is an encouragement to, as Bill and Ted would say, and my friend Dino, rest in peace, be excellent to one another. Don't judge someone based upon their religious affiliations, financial status, political party standing, color of their skin, their sexual identity, their gender identity. Befriend them, get to know them, and be excellent to them. Because we only see fragments of people's days, and we only see what people allow us to see. So we never really understand what someone's going through. And sometimes just being a listening ear and being someone that they can confide in really can make the difference between life and death for them, and happiness and depression, or wanting to be alive and not wanting to be alive. If you're currently going through any of the things that I've just talked about in this video, I encourage you guys to check out our resources in the descriptions below, our mental health resource library. And if you guys like the mission that we have and want to support us, there are links in the descriptions as well on how to support us financially. Once again, Candyland hits limited release and VOD from Quiver Distribution this Friday, January 6th. Make sure you guys check it out. And if you guys have seen it, a la the convention circuit, the festival circuit, make sure that you guys comment below. Let me know what you guys think. And if you guys just heard of this movie, what's your favorite candy? Let me know down below. It's Halloween 365 here with me. So anyways, have a good night and hit the subscribe button below.